a sorcerer. I'm a force of nature. And nature is wild. Unpredictability is my superpower. And chaos is my game. Not again. What are you doing?
Here is our character. Nothing much going on yet, but bam! We're a sorcerer. Not just any sorcerer, we're going to be a Wild Magic Sorcerer. You could probably tell from our intro. And not just any Wild Magic Sorcerer, we're going to be a Halfling Wild Magic Sorcerer. Why Halfling? Well, we do get a couple different abilities, Brave being one of them. It has advantage against the Frightened condition. Being low on Wisdom, this is a fantastic feature to help buffer out our Wisdom saves because we're going to be failing those quite often, unfortunately. We're also going to be using some abilities that we won't be using so often, like Naturally Stealthy or Halfling Nimbleness. We'll use Halfling Nimbleness at least a little bit because it just allows us to have some extra mobility. It's very mid, but it's usable. But most importantly, we're here for luck. Luck is everything for this build, and it begins here. When we roll a 1 on a d20, we get to re-roll that d20 and have to keep whatever number we get. This is fantastic. It means where other people would be getting failures, we're getting re-rolls. And that means, on average, our rolls are going to be better than anybody else's. And that is the theme here. We are controlled chaos. We control, and we are chaotic. So this is the control part of this build. As for our background, we're going to be taking Merchant. This gives us the Lucky feat, which, again, helps us control our dice rolls. Helps give us advantage on any d20 roll. This can be great for saves, can be great for setting up really powerful attacks, can be great just to pass really important ability checks. And on top of that, we're going to get Charisma and Constitution, our two most important abilities. Speaking of abilities, our primary is going to be Charisma, our secondary is going to be Constitution, our tertiary is going to be Dexterity. We're going to put anything else we have into Wisdom, and then we're going to dump Strength and Intelligence. This build can be done completely, even if the only thing you have is the new 2024 Player's Handbook. And in that 2024 Player's Handbook, at Sorcerer Level 1, we get a new sorcery ability. It's called Innate Sorcery. It's a mode you go into, similar to Rage. As a bonus action, you enter this ability. While in this ability, all of your spell attacks specifically have advantage, and all your spell save DCs are +1. That's fantastic altogether, but I am especially excited about the attack portion. Because advantage is essentially a +5 to hit, it's better than the +1 that our DCs get. So this is the reason I've decided to do a blaster-based build, an attack-focused sorcerer for the most part. We're going to mix in some saves, but this is a unique opportunity to build a attack-based spellcaster. So I was excited to do that here, and that's part of the theme. As for our spells, we get the amazing Sorcerous Burst cantrip. This is a D8 long-ranged spell, similar to many cantrips we've seen before, but what's different is if you roll an 8 on your D8, then you get to roll another D8, and if you roll an 8 on that D8, you get to roll another D8, up until we hit a charisma modifier number of rerolls. So what does this mean? I don't know math super well, so I can't tell you if this is better than a D10 scaling cantrip or a D12 scaling cantrip, but what I can tell you is it's better than a D8 scaling cantrip. Because here's something really cool. As we get to roll more dice when we hit level 5, for example, it doubles our chance of hitting an 8 and getting to re-roll another dice. So mathematically, I don't know where it falls above a D8, but I love the theme for this build where we're doing chaotic things. We want to roll dice and have different things happen. Well, this spell is perfect. It's one of our signature spells. An almost equally important cantrip is Shocking Grasp. This is our defensive cantrip. On an attack that we hit in melee, it lets us disengage for free. So this is important because it allows us to escape melee attackers who are trying to kill us. And because we have advantage on our attack roll, it's more likely to work, so we have to be less hesitant of missing and being stuck next to an enemy and not having a disengage action anymore. Another spell I want to talk about here is Witch Bolt. Witch Bolt, terrible spell in the 2014 Player's Handbook, pretty good now. If we hit, we do some burst damage up front. If we don't, or if we do, then every turn afterwards we can use a bonus action to do a bit of damage. Ray of Sickness is also really good on this build because it has advantage. We're very likely to hit, so you're very likely to get value out of that first level spell, and then it's really, really good to nerf a scary attacking enemy, someone who hits hard and hits accurately. This is going to nerf them pretty good for a pretty low cost, so it's another spell I'd keep in our back pocket. Another signature spell that we're going to be running with is Chromatic Orb. This one again falls perfect into that Wild Magic playstyle. We attack someone. If we hit, we're going to roll 3d8. If any of those numbers are duplicates, we get to bounce that orb off of them to somebody within 30 feet and get to remake this attack. This is a pretty unique spell, and it's pretty cool because upcasting it not only increases the damage, it increases the number of dice we roll, which increases the chance that we're going to roll 2 duplicates and get to bounce it again. But I like the chaotic nature of this spell, and I like that it's an AoE option that you can cast in a crowd without having to take Careful Spell. So I never will be taking Careful Spell with this build. So what am I taking as far as Metamagic goes? Well, I'm going to keep in the theme. The first one I'm looking at is Empowered Spell. This one lets us reroll the dice. So what if we really need that Chromatic Orb to bounce? Well, we can use this to empower it to have another shot at getting some duplicate dice to bounce it. This could also be used with Sorcerer's Burst, but I probably wouldn't recommend it. And even though we're probably going to have advantage on most every single attack we make here pretty shortly, I'm still going to be taking Seeking Spell. Seeking Spell, when we miss, we have another opportunity to land. And again, this is held back in reserves for that moment where even with advantage we miss when we really need it to hit. That's when this comes in. Level 3, we're going Wild Magic Sorcerer. The first thing Wild Magic Sorcerer is going to do is whenever we cast a sorcerer spell, we're going to have a 1 in 20 chance that something random happens. And this table is actually pretty great. Most of it's good for us, some of it's completely neutral, and only a little bit of it's bad. And when it gets bad, it's not horribly bad most often. But the more important thing we're getting here is Tides of Chaos. Now, Tides of Chaos gives us advantage on 1d20 roll. And then the next sorcerer spell we cast, it automatically triggers a Wild Magic Surge. How this lines up with this build is pretty interesting. Because we are an attack-based sorcerer, we roll a d20 with our spells, which means we can give it advantage now. So let's give our first spell advantage on an attack roll. Well, the next spell we cast next turn is going to restore Tides of Chaos, which can instantly be used on that attack roll. So then you get into this loop where every single turn you have advantage on every single attack. But here's the catch, is you have to roll on your Wild Magic table on your next spell as well. So after that first spell to set you up, you get to do advantage plus Tides of Chaos every single turn, so long as you have spell slots to invest. That's a lot of burst, that's a lot of crazy stuff that's going to be happening. It's a lot of consistency attached with a lot of inconsistency with the Wild Magic table, which is exactly what I wanted with this build. So you can get this cascade of advantage every single turn, whether you have innate sorcery going on or not. This is what I mean by this build. Every spell we cast is probably going to have advantage on it, so long as it's an attack spell, which makes them far more valuable for us. Which brings me to second level spells. I'm looking at Scorching Ray here as a really standout attack-based spell. It does really good single target damage, giving us that archer type playstyle. Level 4, I went with Spell Sniper. I think this is pretty fun, and when I originally made this choice, I thought it'd make the Chromatic Orb bounce further, so it'd be like expanding the AoE of our AoE spell. It doesn't. Besides the initial attack, it's still going to only bounce within 30 feet, unfortunately, but it still does let us do some pretty cool things with Witch Bolt, where you can attach Witch Bolt and now they have to move much further out of range to break it. This is good if there is no heavy cover for them to get behind, total cover, and that way you can keep the Witch Bolt on them for a really long time. But even with it not working on Chromatic Orb, I just like this here. Sorcerer's Burst is already a pretty long range spell at 120 feet. This brings it to 180 feet. So we can truly snipe people, and it also lets us do Sorcerer's Burst in melee if we want to, although Shocking Grasp is still probably the better option for our survival. Level 5, most important things, I'm picking up Fireball. It synergizes too well with the max damage Wild Magic. We can get a Wild Magic that says your next spell does max damage, and that's just crazy with Fireball. So I'm definitely picking it up here. Other than that, we get Sorceress Restoration, which just means more sorcery points to do more of what we've already been doing. As far as attack spells go, we're kind of getting to the end here. After level 3, it's very scarce. At level 3, we get Vampiric Touch. This gives us a melee option, and with our concentration, having natural proficiency, which can be a pretty decent melee option, although we're not going to be looking for that, but if we get stuck in that situation, we have an option. At level 6, we get some more dice manipulation, as if we haven't had enough. As a reaction, for any other creature, we can roll a d4 and either add that to their d20 or to subtract it from their d20, so it can help allies or debuff enemies. However, this takes a sorcery point, and how often are we going to be using it? I'd say only for those really big dramatic moments where it really really needs to go one direction would I be using this. More often I'm going to want to use it to manipulate our spells in other ways. Level 7 brings us an example of something I'd rather be using our sorcery points on. This is called Sorcery Incarnate, and it gives us for 2 sorcery points the ability to go into innate sorcery again. So that's something I might want to do because that constant advantage is just too good to pass up. Level 8, I'm bumping Charisma. Level 9, the standout spell to me here is Bigsby's Hand. This one gives us a bonus action spell attack that we can then give advantage to, so we always have a spell attack on deck, and then we can combine it with non-concentration spells or just our cantrips to get that damage output really, really high. We can do a whole bunch of other things with Bigsby's Hand. It's very, very flexible, but I do like the idea of it just helping us be a blaster, just giving us an extra attack per turn. Other standout spell here is Synaptic Static. This one will replace Fireball for me for that ultimate damage attack we can do. So moving forward, I think there's a lot of flexibility in what Metamagic you take. I'd be looking at either going into Constitution or picking up some more interesting feats. Overall, you're just going to keep getting better spells, and as you get those better spells, you get to do cooler things, and you get more spell slots to continue doing this wild magic all the time. So really, your identity doesn't change much as you continue forward. You're going to get the ability to roll on your wild magic twice and get to choose each time, so the likelihood of you getting good stuff skyrockets once you hit level 14. And that's where this gets insane, because we're already adding a lot of value, just the amount of output of damage we're doing, but on top of that, getting so many wild magic surges that are going to be beneficial for us more often than not. It's really going to start swaying the tide of battle in our favor. It's almost like we get an extra action. Sure, sometimes that action sucks, but every time we cast a spell, it's like we're getting an extra action on top of it, and we get to do a lot of cool stuff. I think this build would be a ton of fun because, one, you manipulate dice like a master. You can't get natural ones, you have so many ways to have advantage, and you can do a d4 manipulation as a reaction. That's a ton of ways to make the dice roll in your favor, so we have a way to make it so consistent, and then you mix that with the least consistent thing of wild magic sorcery just going absolutely crazy. Things are blowing up, things are turning into potted plants, and so on. This seems like a really fun build for me to personally play. I'm excited to bring this one to a table. If you like wild magic as much as we do, you're going to love our traveling merchant. You can get him for free. The link is going to be down in the description below. What he does is he sells chaos grenades, darts, and candy. Each one has their own wild magic surge table, each one uniquely designed. I think it's pretty cool, pretty fun. It's a modular piece you can add into any D&D world, and it's down below for you. All right, my friends, with that, I hope you have yourselves an incredible day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.